Hello world! Yo, what's up Funky fam? The new Hearthstone expansion, Ashes of Outland, is almost here in just about a week and a half. We have a lot of brand new things and a lot of changes coming up, and not a whole lot of time to prepare for it. So we are entering into a rotation, which means that 3 whole expansions are being dropped off, which include the Witchwood, Boomsday, and Rastikan's Rumble. So all 3 of those expansions are going to be moving into Wild. We do not get to play with those anymore in Standard, but we do get this new expansion. So we will have 4 expansions worth of cards to work with. So the meta is going to be changing quite drastically. It's going to be turned on its head with so many expansions leaving and coming in and all these new cards to work with and these new metas. So a lot of you guys may be wondering, where do I start? What decks do I craft? Well, I got you guys covered. Ever since all the cards were revealed on Wednesday, I have been tirelessly at work to craft and homebrew the best theory-crafted decks of the new expansion so far. So I have theory-crafted 2 decks for each class and 3 for Demon Hunter to give you guys some kind of ideas as to what will be good and what to craft on day 1. I hope you guys liked the video. Let me know your thoughts on these decks, and if you have any other decks, go ahead and let me know in the comments below as well. Sorry about the bland background behind me. I'm actually in the process of moving, so it's going to be kind of boring of a background, but it'll have to do for now. If you guys want to go ahead and support and grow this community, you can go ahead and subscribe and like this video, as it does help the algorithm. Thanks for watching, enjoy the new expansion, and stay funky. All right, so I know a lot of you guys out there are as excited as I am about the new class Demon Hunter. So that'll be the first class that we go over for the Theory Crafted decks today. So because it is a brand new class, we've never seen it before, I have 3 Theory Crafted new decks for you guys to try on day 1. So let's hop into number 1. All right, so up first we have a token Demon Hunter. So Demon Hunter has a lot of token synergies here with cards like Coordinated Strike and Command the Illidari to summon a bunch of things, kind of like Swarm of the Locusts in a way. Then you have a new weapon, the Umberwing, which creates 2 tokens. Then you have an effect kind of like Cult Master, the Feast of the Souls, where every single minion that has died, you get to draw a card from. We also have a couple really big late game bombs in this deck too. So we have Nethrandamus, the new dragon for Demon Hunter. So this guy gets to summon 2 dudes with him that keep getting bigger and bigger the more times that minions die on the battlefield while this guy is in your hand. So it is only while it is in your hand, not in your deck. So first you have to draw him, then you have to have minions die. Another cool finisher that this deck has is Wrathscale Naga. So if you have like quite a few of these tokens, or if you use Command the Illidari or Coordinated Strike, instead of trying to get through a taunt, you can just go ahead and just smash your minions into the taunt, and each minion that dies will deal 3 damage to your opponent. So if you have 5 of these tokens, your opponent's at 15 health and they have a taunt in the way, boom, dead. And then we have one of my favorite new cards that was revealed for the new expansion. We have Terran Gorefiend in this deck. So this guy is a monster when it comes to tokens. So not only do you get to protect your tokens against like board clears by putting them under a death rattle, such as himself, but when he dies, they all come back bigger and buffed. All in all, I think this will be one of the most powerful Demon Hunter decks that we see, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So some version of this is going to be an absolute powerhouse. Now this second deck is a lot different from the first one. This one plays a little bit more control and mid-range-ish to cheat out really, really big minions. So a couple new cards that Demon Hunter has available to them that allow this archetype to work. We have Pit Commander. So at the end of your turn, summon a demon from your deck. We have a lot of big demons that can be summoned, such as Hulking Overfiend, which is kind of like a bigger batterhead. And then we have Priestess of Fury. She is absolutely insane, especially if you can cheat her out. But a 6/7 that basically does a better Cinderstorm at the end of your turn every single turn that she's alive is ridiculous. We also have things like Fell Summoner to help cheat out our big demons as well, because in 2020, who pays mana for cards anymore? One of the most powerful cards I think, in Demon Hunter in general, in the class, is Imprison Antean. This card is absolutely insane. So when it becomes awakened, you basically get to cast Reno's effect onto your enemy's board. And you can have 2 of them in your deck. Whereas Reno and Mage is limited to a legendary minion, this is a rare, so we can have 2 of them in our deck. Granted, it does take 2 turns for it to activate, but oftentimes it's not a problem in a deck like this. Because we have things like Chaos Nova, I-Beam, Twin Slice, Chaos Strike, Immolation Aura to control the early game. And of course, if we're playing Demon Hunter, we have to have the OG Demon Hunter himself in here. Illidan Stormrage is in here, or I guess now he's called Xavius, I think he is. So they had to change Illidan Stormrage the card into a different name and different artwork because now Illidan is all of a sudden a hero and not a card. So I guess it's now called Xavius. And the third and final deck for Demon Hunter is going to be an aggro tempo Demon Hunter. So this deck really takes advantage of all the chip damage that Demon Hunter can do, all the attacking shenanigans that it can do, kind of really utilizing the lore of like the 2 Warglaives, you know, kind of like chipping them down with 2 Warglaives. So we have a lot of little minions that we're going to throw at them with a Magic Carpet. We also have things like Twin Slice to chip them down. Now, a Sightless Watcher is an interesting card that I wanted to talk about as well too, because this guy, he doesn't get to draw a card, so you'd think it's not as good. However, there's a lot of cards that have Outcast in this deck, which means if the card is in the very right side or the very left side point in your hand, it has another effect to it. So Sightless Watcher can enable these Outcast cards even easier if you know what you're going to draw. You can discover an Outcast card, put it on the top of your deck so you know what you're going to top deck. So that way you can enable the Outcast and play it right away. Now this deck's late game is kind of cool. It uses 2 Glavebound Adepts, which is kind of like a Vile Spine Slayer, if anybody remembers that from the Ungoro meta. Basically, you get to develop a big minion alongside with killing a minion. So 4 damage is enough to kill basically any early to kind of mid-range minion. And then you have a 7/4 body sticking around, which then your opponent has to deal with. Metamorphosis is pretty cool too. It's like a 5 mana, 2-turn Pyroblast, which is great for polishing off your opponent. Or we also have Inner Demon to help polish off our opponent. Because we don't have Leroy Jenkins anymore, we have to find other creative ways of dealing that last little bit of burst if we need it. And then Skull of Gul'dan is absolutely insane. One of the best Demon Hunter cards, in my opinion. It's basically Togwaggle's wand, but easy to activate. This deck is so cheap that it's very easy to cycle through your hand to make this on the leftmost side. Otherwise, if your hand is empty and you top deck this on 5, you're absolutely going to want to play this. And yeah, just the effect, basically half the deck or more is 3 mana or less. So when you use Skull of Gul'dan, kind of like Togwaggle's wand, you can just instantly play whatever you draw from this. So it's just really good feel to help keep up the tempo. These, in my opinion, are going to be the 3 best and most fun Demon Hunter decks for the new expansion, so I hope you guys enjoyed these ones. Now, this first Hunter deck is a juicy one, utilizing a lot of big beasts, and who doesn't love big beasts? So we have a couple new cards that buff up your beasts in your deck. So we have Scavenger's Ingenuity, which will draw a beast and buff it up. We also have a way of hand buffing your beasts as well with Scrap Shot. Now, to help support this deck before we get to the late game, until we can start dropping some of those big beasts, we do run a small rush package and a small death rattle package in here. And this will help out the early mid game, the early game. So we have things now like Augmented Porcupine, and then we can follow that up and copy that, the Death Rattle with Machnathal Lion. We have Zixor Apex Predator, which we can copy the Death Rattle of, getting another Prime back into our deck. And then we can get to our late game, and then the fun starts happening. We can take all of our leftover big buffed beasts, including King Crush. We can summon them all for free with Beastmaster Leorox. And if we pull a couple of beasts with Tundra Rhino, all of them are going to get charged. And that can not only be a swing turn, that could be a finisher. The second Hunter deck isn't going to be as unique per se, as it is another Highlander deck, but it does use a lot of the new cards, and I think it's going to be very, very solid. The reason that Highlander just works so well is because there's a small Death Rattle package With Augmented Porcupine, you have the new Machnathal Lion and like Bad Luck Albatross and whatnot. You have also a small rush package like Clear the Way, Diving Griffin, Desert Spear, etc. But you don't really have enough of both of those to make a separate deck of each. So they just naturally fit very well into a Highlander deck, especially one like this one that you can focus a little bit more on beasts. A lot of the new cards that we got just fit very, very well into the curve of a Highlander hunter. You can Pack Tactics or Scavenger's Ingenuity, curving into an Augmented Porcupine, or Zixar Apex Predator, curving into Machnathal Lion, or Scrap Shots, and you get the idea. Now, this first Druid deck, you might recognize it is a Mali Druid, and it looks better than ever. So we use the quest package in here to control the game and to cycle as quickly as possible, and then when we're towards the end of our deck, we'll use these Imprisoned Satyrs, and then hopefully Malygos is the only minion left in our hand. So when these Imprisoned Satyrs awaken, it'll reduce the Malygos down to 0 mana, then we can copy it with Germination, and then use our Moonfires and Swipes to polish off our opponent. Another cool card that we can use in this deck, thanks to the quest, is Archboar Mishafin. So he himself doesn't have any relation to the Druid quest, but once he dies, his prime actually is a Choose 1 card. Now this second Druid deck is a spicy one, I'll let you know. It is a spell token Druid. So it takes advantage of a lot of the Druid cards that we have with this new expansion that takes advantage of spell effects. So we have things like Fungal Fortune, which is like a spell version of Book of Specters. We have things like Glowfly Swarm, which swarms the board if you have a ton of spells in hand. And we have Bogbeam and Ironbark, which are 0 mana cost spells if you're over 7 mana, which is pretty easy to get to. And another cool thing you can do with Bogbeam and Ironbark is combo them with Kael'thas. So after turn 7, they are 0 mana, so it's super easy to use a couple of them with Kael'thas in a single turn to all of a sudden discount your Forest Aid or Force of Nature down to 0 mana. And a lot of the Druid spells have some kind of token synergy to them, whether it be like Forest Aid, Glowfly Swarm, Force of Nature, Soul of the Forest, Savage Roar. So I figured in a deck full of spells, you need some kind of a win condition. And I figured, at least going the token route, at least provides us some kind of a win condition. And speaking of a deck of only spells, we have a Mage version with only spells as well. So Mage can get away with running only spells, not only because they have a lot of really powerful spells available to them, but because they have a Pexus Blast. So this new card allows them to not only clear minion, but generate tempo at the same time, and that is very, very strong. We also have things like Incanter's Flow, which reduce the cost of spells in your deck by 1. So basically, every single card in your deck now costs 1 less. If you can cast 2 of these, all of a sudden, everything in your deck costs 2 less. That is extremely, extremely powerful. Now, this deck doesn't really have any solid win condition, and that's kind of the problem about running only spells in Mage, is that you don't really have a solid win condition. So I figured you can kind of play a control-ish kind of deck and rely on some kind of tempo swings like a Pexus Blast and, Power of Creation, Puzzle Box, and of course, the amazing Reno. He can always cast you something good. This next Mage deck is super interesting, and it's one of my favorites. Now, this deck has the potential to be extremely potent thanks to Incanter's Flow. It makes every spell in your deck cost 1 less, so it's basically a permanent Sorcerer's Apprentice for all the spells in your deck. We all know how busted Sorcerer's Apprentice is in Cyclone decks when almost every spell costs 1 anyways. And then we also have elemental allies in the deck as well. So when this is completed, hopefully after we cast Incanter's Flow, we can draw 3 0 mana cost spells from our deck, and then we can pop off with our Mana Cyclone, our Shenvala, our Questing Adventurer, or Gadgets and Auctioneer. The first list we have up for Paladin is going to be a Highlander, Murloc, Dragon, Paladin. So for some reason, Blizzard keeps trying to push Murlocs and Dragons in Paladin at the same time. So I'm like, all right, let's embrace it. Let's go full-blown Dragons and Murlocs. So now, thanks to some of these new cards like Imprisoned Sungill, Underlights, Angling Rod, Felfin, Navigator, and more, we have enough tools that we can make a Highlander deck full of nothing but dragons and good Murlocs. All right, so this next deck seems insane. It is a pure Libram Paladin. So pure Paladin, only Paladin cards, and then it uses the new Libram synergies of Libram of Justice, Libram of Hope, Libram of Wisdom, and then the new 2 minions that discount those Librams, Aldor Truthseeker and Aldor Attendant. Now, when looking at these Librams, it kind of screams control a little bit. So these Librams, they become 0 mana cost eventually, permanently, so you can keep recasting these on your minions whenever a minion dies with this. It kind of reminded me of like a Quest Priest, how it's a control deck, but they win eventually by kind of buffing up their minions to the point that you just can't deal with it. So I wanted a control deck that goes towards the late game so you can really take advantage of these Librams. If games are too quick, you can't really take advantage of their effects for too often, or you can't discount them enough. And this deck has a ton of value. So not only do you get to be recasting the Libram of Wisdom over and over again, but you get the Prime of McGurgle, and then you're constantly generating stuff, whether it's through Bronze Explorer, a free True Silver with Lightforged Zealot, more cards with Lightforged Crusader. So the next class to take a look at is Priest, and this one was a little bit difficult because Priest has changed a lot recently. So Priest has had some cards moved to the Hall of Fame, they've had some new cards reintroduced, and they're pretty much going through a complete underhaul of the class. So it was a little bit difficult to theorycraft these, but I think I got a couple that are pretty viable. So we don't have any more win conditions of Mind Blast. We don't have Leroy anymore. We don't have Prophet Velen. We don't have Divine Spirit even anymore. So Priestess doesn't really have a whole lot of win conditions at the moment. So I had to try and find a deck that'll win with a win condition. And I believe a Highlander deck can do that pretty consistently. So Highlander decks are just pretty versatile overall. And this one does a pretty good job of controlling and then throwing down some pretty big threats as well. And then, of course, we have Zephrys and Dragon Queen Alexstrasza to provide us those elusive win conditions. The next deck is going to be kind of a quirky Priest deck. It's going to be a Tempo Priest deck. So now Priest is getting a few more good early game minions, such as Reliquary of Souls. We got the new Imprisoned Homunculus. We have the new Kultaran Chaplain. We also have a Dragon Maw Overseer and then the Dark Prophecy. So there's a lot of these really good value early game minions that it seems like they're giving Priest. So I figured let's go ahead and make a Tempo deck, because even if we don't have like Leroy or Mind Blast or any way of really finishing our opponent, that might be the tricky part with this deck. We do have a really good way of just dominating the early game and snowballing from there. Shh, this next deck is a secret. No, but for real, this next deck is Secret Rogue. So I'm pretty excited about this one. We've tried secrets in Rogue before, and now we get to try them again. I think these secrets are a lot better this time around. We actually have some really good secrets. So I took a look at the secrets to see what direction that I wanted to take the deck, and looking at Bamboozle and Ambush, these are kind of aggressive secrets. Same thing with like Dirty Tricks. So they allow you to be an aggressive deck, and Rogue is already aggressive. So let's take this into more of a tempo aggressive style. And then I also saw that Shadow Jeweler Hanar discovers a secret from another class. Now, what you can do with this is you can combine this with other thieving mechanics. So when you get the secrets from other classes, you can use that with Underbelly Fence, you can use that with Vendetta, etc. And then Blackjack Stunner is absolutely stunning, pun intended. It's like a targeted freezing trap, which is absolutely crazy, especially in an aggressive style deck like this one. If your opponent has a taunt, you can just freezing trap the taunt and just keep going face. And this next archetype is another really cool archetype that they're trying to push onto Rogue, and that's a Stealth Rogue. So Stealth naturally is an aggressive style because your opponent can't interact with it. It's basically like a delayed charge. So it kind of guarantees that you attack with it, provided your opponent doesn't like board clear or put down a taunt or whatnot. And then one thing you can do with stealth minions is you can actually buff them up before your opponent gets to interact with them. So you can play things like Ash Tongue Slayer or Cold Blood onto your minions and then get to attack with them before your opponent can kill them. Blizzard just really loves Evolve Shaman, don't they? So this next Shaman deck is an Evolve Shaman using a couple of new Evolve mechanics, using a couple new Evolve cards such as Bogspine Knuckles and Bogstraw Clacker. Now, because we're going to be evolving a lot of things, I figured we can run the quest package in here because you get a lot of powerful effects with Battlecry effects, but they're very usually undercosted, so you can evolve those undercosted minions into something a little bit more powerful for tempo. Another reason that makes me want to go quest is because we can do a combo like the good old Doom in the Tomb combo of Desert Hair plus Evolve. We can equip a Bogspine Knuckles, and then on the next turn, we can Hero Power plus Desert Hair to fill up our board with these Desert Hairs, and then evolve them all with Bogspine Knuckles once we attack. The other Shaman deck that I prepared for you guys is going to be like a control mid-range-ish variant of Galakrond. So a lot of the cards that Shaman got are very control-oriented, or like spell-oriented. Use a Serpent Shrine Portal, Marsh Spawn, Shattered Rumbler Torrent. So they're all kind of control and spell-based, so I figured we can kind of throw them into like a control package. But I don't think like a pure control deck will work in the next meta, so I wanted to throw some kind of threats in there, and I figured the Galakrond package is perfect. And because the Galakrond package does use Invocation of Frost on turn 2, we can actually curve an Invocation of Frost on turn 2 into a Marsh Spawn on turn 3. Now, this first Warlock deck actually looks very, very promising. So as tradition, every single expansion, some version of Zoolock will pop up, and I think this is the version for this expansion. Typically, Warlock or Zoolock in general gets a lot of 1-drops, so naturally we have the Magic Carpet with a lot of the 1-drops, but we also have the self-damaging package in here as well. We have the Neferset Thrasher, the Diseased Vulture, Flame Imp, and also the new Soulbound Ash Tongue in here as well. And with all these self-damaging mechanics, not only can we take advantage of the Diseased Vulture, but we can also take advantage of the effect from Dark Glare. So every single time you take damage, you gain 2 mana crystals. You can really pop off on some turns that you tack in with your Ash Tongue, you damage yourself, you play a Flame Imp, you damage yourself, you tap, you damage yourself, and this whole time you're re-getting all that mana, and you can play a ton of things in one turn with this one card. And another insane combo you can do with this deck now is you can use Hand of Gul'dan with Nightshade Matron. At that point, Nightshade Matron is basically a 4-mana 5/5 rush, draw 3 cards. Now that is insanely powerful. And that is also why we have a copy of Soulfire and Expired Merchant in here as well too. So if we don't draw the Nightshade Matrons, but we do draw the Hand of Gul'dan, at least we have a way of being able to discard it for the 3 free cards. And the next promising and fun deck for Warlock is going to be a quest plot twist, Betrug Big Warlock. So there's a lot of big minions that Warlock can play now with this new expansion. So we have Scrapyard Colossus, we have Enhanced Dreadlord, Keladan the Breaker, which isn't great to get. It's not a big minion, but it's a powerful one. It's a powerful little effect. And then we have Canrathed Ebenlock, which when he dies and then you get to replay his prime, he will resummon all your big demons that died this game. So just looking at this deck, it looks pretty solid. And I mean, who doesn't love to play a bunch of big minions? All right, so the first warrior deck that we have is going to be an Enraged Warrior. Or I guess for all you newer Hearthstone players, While Damaged Warrior. Now, Ashes of Outland brought a lot of kind of enraged mechanics and cards with it. So we have the Bone Chewer Raider, we have the Blood Boil Brute, we also have the Terror Guard, we also have the Bone Chewer Brawler, the Guardian Og Merchant, which is great to enable your enraged synergies. Another cool combo that I actually found while sifting through the cards is Terror Guard Escapee. So you summon 3 1/1 Huntresses for your opponent, and then you can easily Whirlwind all that away using like Risky Skipper or Whirlwind or just trading into those minions. And then of course, any enraged deck wouldn't be complete without one of my favorite finishers, Grommash. And the second warrior deck is going to be a revisit of an older deck. It's going to be Bomb Warrior. One of the best tools that Bomb Warrior had to shuffle bombs was their Wrench Caliber, because it shuffled 2 bombs in. Well, what if I told you that now we have a way to tutor the Wrench Caliber? Well, with Corsair Cash, we can actually tutor that Wrench Caliber and give it extra durability so we can attack with it again, shuffling yet another bomb into their deck. Now, we did lose a few control tools. We also did lose Dr. Boom Mad Genius, but we did also gain a few new cards to kind of replace those holes. So we have Waste Warden, which is really good against those tribal decks or just to kind of kill one minion by itself. We also have Blade Storm, which is kind of a board clear. And then we also have Kargath Blade Fist, which is Warrior's Prime. And this is actually kind of like a spot removal, and it also gains armor on its Prime version when you use it. One thing to note is that bombs are going to be amazing versus Highlander decks. So if we do tend to see more Highlander decks, this might end up creeping up into the meta. Well, that's it, guys. 21 fresh, exciting new decks for you guys to try out on day 1 of the new expansion, Ashes of Outland. So I hope you guys enjoyed all these decks. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in Outland soon.